Okay, hello YouTube. It's October the 1st, so I'm going to give another in my installment on scary things that have happened to me over the years. I am an old fella, so I got quite a few stories. Probably going to give about a story a week here up until Halloween. And so the story I'm going to give today is the second Chris story. Now, for those of you that didn't watch the first video, the Chris is what we called, what we later found to be called Sasquatch or Bigfoot. So I've given two scary stories. One was with this thing we called Chris, and the second one was a UFO event that really should be on TV and be a story, but it hasn't been. At any rate, this story is the second Bigfoot type story of what we called Chris, the Chris. So we had something lurking around, and it would have been the next summer. And this incident would have been by the swimming pool where we were members of the place. You could go swimming pool. I believe they had tennis out there, shuffleboard, ping pong, and things of that nature. And we were fortunate as a family when I was a kid to be members to this, I believe it was called Country Hills Country Club or something. And we were there swimming. It was summer yet again. I believe I would have been in elementary school, and I would have been in early elementary school. I don't know what grade. I can't remember that. Second or third grade, I believe. Probably second. Me and a friend of mine were in the pool, and of course, as I said in the first Chris story, so let me just describe the area around the pool. We had what I believe to have been a 6-foot fence going all around the perimeter of the whole place. And the swimming pool was at the back portion of the place. And right on the other side of the gate, or the fencing that was around, that I believe was 6 foot, could have been 8 foot, but to a little kid it was a minimum of 6 foot, because it was taller than any of the adults around. But right on the other side, probably about 4 to 6 foot on the other side, on the outside of the fence, is where the wood line started at this time. And thick woods behind there. But this year, there were some dead trees or something, because we could see through the foliage. There was no open area back in there that we could see, but we could really see into the foliage in between the trees. So we're out there and we are swimming, and there's probably 25, 30 people, I'm thinking, in the pool swimming. And then there is people laying out and sunbathing and what have you on the exterior of the pool. I remember people were playing ping pong and shuffleboard at this moment. because it was right near the gate area on the back side of the pool. But we're in there and we hear something crash like you wouldn't believe. And it wasn't a normal sound of a tree falling or something like that. It was a crash, and a big tree had been knocked over. And we looked over to where we heard the huge noise, and we saw something standing there. And it was something taller than anything I had ever seen. But I looked over at my friend and I said, "Did you see that?" And he said, "I'm looking at it with you right now." Or "I'm looking at it with you right now." So it turns out about 12 to 14 people looked over and saw this thing. And then this thing turned around and walked through the woods, and you could hear the crackling of it going through the woods and the brush, and it was very scary. And we got out of the swimming pool. There was the road leading up to the country club still had not been paved. It was nice gravel. It was manicured and kept all up through the winding road to it, but the road had not been paved yet. It's since been paved, and the pool has since been filled in, and there are houses back there now. The country club is there no more. But at the time, there were no houses back up in there or anything. But there are probably hundreds of houses back in there and no woods no more. But it scared us enough and scared most of the people enough that we were like, we are going home. The problem for me and my friend that I was with was that we had walked down there and we had to walk back home. And there were woods on each side of the road there that we had to walk down, and we were scared to death on that walk back, but we knew we weren't going to stay there after we saw what we saw. Nobody that saw it stayed. They all left. So not everybody left the pool, but the people that saw this thing, they all left. And it's just really weird. We had to walk down that road, and we were barreling down that road, running down that road, and it was probably about 1.5 miles to get from outside the swimming pool to the paved road. And we got all the way down to the paved road where our development began. And when we got to that paved road, we felt so relieved and so safe. And we were kids now, we were younger, and we felt like, oh, we're in total safety now. And we didn't talk about this thing all the way down that gravel road. We didn't say a word. We just ran that whole distance. And for somebody that's in the 2nd, 3rd, or 4th grade, it was a huge distance to run. We'd get out and we were always running around, but that was a long distance to run without stopping for 2 young boys. And but when we got to the paved section of it, that's when we started really talking about what we had saw again. Of course, we were there. We didn't have parents with us at the time, and it was safe enough back then that we could go and other adults would watch us, and there was no worries like that you have today in most places. We didn't have any types of worries that a parent would have today. Our parents freely let us go there, and knew we would be in good hands and be watched through the neighborhood on the walk down and on the walk back. But that particular day was very nerve-wracking. But kids are resilient, and the very next day, although we were a little nervous, we were thinking and our parents were telling us, oh, that thing, whatever you saw, maybe it was a bear, maybe you all were mistaken and it probably was a bear. But you have to remember, we had went through the incident where all the men had went down there the year before and had shot at this thing. And there was a lot of blood laying around out there, so we knew that. So it was a very scary situation for us. This was back in a day where Bigfoot was not famous, and we didn't even know what to call this thing. And somehow or another, it got labeled the Chris, and that label stayed with it all throughout the area where I grew up. And so we had the legend of the Chris in our area in North Carolina. This was well before any of the Bigfoot movies or any of that came out. As a matter of fact, I think a year or two later, the legend of Boggy Creek came out. And that was a terrifying movie for us. We all went to see it. And if you haven't watched the original Legend of Boggy Creek, today it might not have the shock factor that it had back then, but it had a tremendous shock factor for us. So that was another scary, very scary situation that I had. And the next story I think I'm going to tell you is a story where I went camping at 10 years old all by myself. And again, it was a different day, a different time. You could do things like that. At that time, we lived near what we called the Old City Lake, and so we would go camp there. But one night in the dead of winter, I said, well, I'm going to go camping. It was right after Christmas, and I had gotten a nice, beautiful yellow tent, and I wanted to go test it out. So I went camping by myself that evening and stayed through the night and had quite an experience out there then. I was loaded down with protection. And again, this was another day. I had a .22 long barrel target pistol, revolver target pistol, and I had a .22 semi-automatic rifle that held, I believe, 21 shots. So I was very well protected when I went there, but something very scary happened to me, and I'll tell that story on the next scary video, and this will be in this coming up week. So much love to everybody. I want to end this with, to everybody that watches, thank you. Please hit the like button. Help us out a little bit if you don't mind. And Joe's doing really great in the boxing. He is in a 2-week takeoff period, but he's working a little bit during these 2 weeks. We will finish up all his final exams the day after tomorrow, I believe. It'll be Friday when we finish them all up, I think. And we want to tell everybody we love you. Thank you for coming over here. I'll end this video like I normally try to end my videos, with God bless you all. We worship Christ up in here. Christ is our King, and we we hope all of you come over to our team.